Fullbacks are now perceived as some of the most exciting and expansive players on the pitch. That's certainly true of the Premier League, where we've got an absolute abundance of riches in the fullback positions. Two of the best though, Joao Cancelo of Manchester City and Trent Alexander-Arnold of Liverpool, have taken their game to even higher heights this season. So, who is the better fullback, Joao Cancelo or Trent Alexander-Arnold? Firstly, it's important to distinguish the differing roles between the two fullbacks. Cancelo operates as an inverted left-back for Manchester City. Pep Guardiola will also utilise a winger on their true side, so Phil Foden, who often runs down the left channel on his favoured foot, dragging out the right back or right wing back and potentially a central midfielder, which provides Cancelo a decent amount of space where he can then exploit his technical brilliance. For Liverpool, Trent Alexander-Arnold has a slightly different role, so he'll pick up the ball in the right half space close to the touchline, often receiving maybe a sprayed pass off Jordan Henderson or something like that, and that gives him a short amount of time and space to quickly whip in an effective cross, which he's done for so many years now. Given the attacking threat that both these fullbacks offer, it's no surprise to see that they rank so highly in attacking statistics. Cancelo's got an XG of 0.13, with Alexander-Arnold having an XG of 0.12, which are both incredibly high figures for fullbacks. Expected assists is where Alexander-Arnold really shows how good of a creator he is, with 0.51 expected assists per 90. This towers over Cancelo's 0.16 expected assists per 90. Over the whole course of the season, this totals Alexander at 4.9 expected assists, which is by far the highest for any defender in the league and only second to Salah out of all players. Cancelo still has managed 1.9 expected assists, which is the fifth highest out of all Premier League defenders. However, it pales in comparison to Alexander-Arnold's monumental figure. So, overall, Cancelo scored no goals and managed 3 assists, whereas Alexander-Arnold scored 1 goal and actually outperformed his expected assists, making 6 this season. Considering that Alexander-Arnold by far and away out of all defenders has the highest figure for expected assists this season, that he also ranks very highly for key passes with 3.4 key passes per 90, which is a higher total than Cancelo's 1.01. He's also ranking higher for shot creating actions and goal creating actions, both times again ranking first out of all defenders. And in these sort of metrics, Cancelo's consistently ranking well, maybe 3rd or 4th for defenders in the Premier League, but Alexander-Arnold just seems to be in a league of his own. Interestingly as well, out of all the shot creating actions that Alexander-Arnold has created, and there have been 54 of them, 51 of those have come directly from a pass. So his primary output of chance creation is through passing. But Cancelo actually makes more passes than Alexander-Arnold. Cancelo actually makes more passes than any player in the Premier League. He actually makes more touches than any player in the Premier League. And this highlights quite well one of the differences between the players. Cancelo is more the player to weave attacks together on that left channel, become sort of the metronome of Manchester City's possession play, whereas Alexander-Arnold is more this creator out of nothing sometimes, just an amazing piece of crossing, an amazing pass to create a goal creating action. Now on to dribbles, which is something that Cancelo should excel at, considering that earlier this year Guardiola called him a midfielder, and he's actually played as a midfielder for both Juventus and Valencia before. He's made 1.51 successful dribbles per 90, which is 4th for all Premier League defenders, and it's a higher total than Alexander-Arnold's 0.62 successful dribbles per 90. Progressive carries as well, Cancelo ranks incredibly well with 9.92 progressive carries per 90, which is 1st for all Premier League defenders and only 2nd to Declan Rice out of all Premier League players. Again, doing much better than Alexander-Arnold, who only manages 5.67 progressive carries, which is 13th out of Premier League defenders. Unsurprisingly as well, Cancelo is able to carry the ball into the final third, where he ranks 1st again, and for this, Alexander-Arnold again doesn't rank quite as well, coming in 15th. This goes to show again how Cancelo is just the ticking metronome of Manchester City's attack on the left-hand side, whereas Alexander-Arnold typically creates a goal-scoring chance from a cross or an amazing pass. Cancelo creates more space for others through amazing dribbling and awareness. Defensively, it's not as easy to compare the two players because the metrics can't be displayed in such a bilateral way. It is noticeable though that Trent can at times be made vulnerable on the right hand side. Particularly we saw this last year with the absence of Jordan Henderson and Fabinho as the central midfielder in Liverpool's 4-3-3, who would offer cover for Alexander-Arnold as he bombed up the pitch. When these players weren't there was a lot of space on Liverpool's right hand channel for the opposition left winger to exploit. That's not so much the case with Cancelo, who's a bit more diligent defensively and is better in his 1v1 duels as well. That can sort of be displayed in the stats. Cancelo's made 17 successful tackles this season, which ranks him 6th out of all defenders compared to Alexander-Arnold's 12. Again, it's difficult to pick apart these stats because teams defend differently and therefore you make a different amount of interceptions and tackles. It is important to note how Man City are extremely tight at the back. They've only conceded 6 goals this season to an XG of 8.83, which is a lot better than Liverpool's 10 goals conceded this season to an XG of 12.5. The only question is, to what extent can these fullbacks be fully responsible for the defensive performance of their teams? So the question, who is better, Trent Alexander-Arnold or Joao Cancelo? It's difficult because Alexander-Arnold is clearly the better chance creator and goal creator. We can see that in the assist metrics, the goal creating actions and shot creating actions. Cancelo is the better dribbler on the ball and he's better in possession of the ball, unless obviously we're talking about crosses and corners and dead ball situations. We saw that against Everton, how he's got the technical flair of an attacking midfielder. And that gives a complete different dimension to Manchester City's attack. So he works perfectly in their system, just like Alexander-Arnold works perfectly on Liverpool's right channel. Defensively, yes, Cancelo is probably a slightly stronger player, but it's actually impossible to tell which player is better. They work in completely different systems. They're completely intrinsic to the way their team plays, and they're absolutely vital to how their team primarily attacks. Yes, they're very different, but they encapsulate exactly what each of their teams are about, and that's the most important aspect of both of these players.